As I planned to shoot this video, the temperatures were hanging around the mid-50s and it was really making me want to get out on the water and do some fishing. But of course, it is Missouri, so it had to randomly snow right after that. But that doesn't mean that I have to wait it out for a consistent warm weather to enjoy some good fishing. And if you do wait for that consistent warm weather and that coveted spawn to hit, you could find yourself packed in tight, bow to stern with other boats who waited just like you did. So don't wait for that crowd to get out there and catch everything or worry about tangling your lines with everybody else. Get out there and fish now. But this back and forth weather, this cold to hot to cold again, it might make it a little bit tougher for you. So in this video, we're going to go over 3 early spring crappie fishing tips. But before we go over how you can catch your limit before everybody else, do me a favor, and if this is your first time on my channel, hit that subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell icon so you can be notified every time I upload a video. And the first tip to getting out there early and catching those crappie before anybody else is you got to break out a topo map. Successful fishermen, regardless of what species they prefer to go after, all know the importance of structure. Even the most newbie fisherman knows to fish around stumps and all that, but what I'm talking about is the bottom structure. The topography of that lake or river or whatever it is you're fishing determines where the fish are going to travel and hang out. It's their streets and highways. Study the topo map of the lake or river you're wanting to fish and look for things like drop-offs, humps, creek channels, things like that. Then go over these areas that you've identified on the map with your fish finder. Mark additional structure like brush piles, rock piles, stuff like that. Anything that you think a fish might want to hang around in, mark it because you're going to want to fish there. And the second tip to early spring crappie fishing is to combine what you've learned from that topo map and that fish finder scavenger hunt that you went on with where you know they're going to spawn. The early spring, especially here in Missouri and these surrounding states, can be extremely random. You could have a week full of mid-50s and 60s, and then immediately after that just have bitter cold and snow. This will make crappie jump back and forth from these staging areas that they hold up in when it's cold to the shallow spawning grounds. This is why knowing the topography of where you're fishing is so important. Find out where they're likely going to spawn and then back off. Look for that deeper water with additional structure whenever it's cold out. They're going to stage up in these areas before moving in to spawn. Often you'll find them suspended in very tight groups about 12 to 15 feet over deeper water just waiting for the weather to warm up. Once it warms up, they're going to move into these shallow waters to spawn. So if you find them in this deeper water when it's cold out, and then all of a sudden you get a period of warmer weather, just head back to the exact same spot where you were catching them when it was cold, but move in shallower. With that information, you'll be able to follow the crappie from deep to shallow and back again as the temperature changes, helping you fill your boat no matter the weather. And the last tip to early spring crappie fishing is to slowly troll over deep structure. Sometimes finding fish isn't the hard part. It's finding fish that will bite that is difficult. And that's where trolling can help you find productive spots when they're few and far between. Have a few rods out with a variety of dark and bright colored lures to figure out what's going to entice those finicky crappie to bite. This works much better than hovering over one spot and trying one lure at a time. Speed is the key here. When the water is cold, fish are going to move much slower. Use your trolling motor just enough to keep the slack out of your lines and going where you want to go. As the temperature goes up, so does your speed. So that was 3 tips to catching early spring crappie. If you have any more tips, leave those down in the comments below. Make sure you hit that like button if you like this video, share it if you found it helpful, and make sure that you are subscribed so you can stay informed.